Hello and welcome, my friends, to another School Shield podcast. I am your host, Dr. Timothy Lawler, and I have another treat. I'm excited to bring out our guest on the line. It's been a little while since he's been on, but if you guys are seeing this again, these are usually video podcasts, just so you can see our screens, see our logos, see our websites to get more information. And real fast, again, if you've never seen who we are, what we're about, please feel free to check us out at our website, which is www.schoolshield.com, which you can see on the screen right there. But you'll also be seeing this is the first podcast this week, ladies and gentlemen, in which we have our new logo. We are a company that is always changing and always striving to be better. And so this is our new logo up with the red and gray, and we're very proud of it. And you'll be seeing that implemented in many of our other media outlets, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, our Facebook fan page, and of course our website. But that's just some housekeeping out of the way to get you up to date. So again, if you've never seen who we are, please check out our website at schoolshield.com. Also, which we'll talk about a little later, if you have not yet checked out our free report, which is 21 ways to keep your child safe, please go ahead and obtain it for free at schoolshieldsolutions.com. That's www.schoolshieldsolutions.com. All right, so moving on to this week's podcast. This is starting to get into some really good meat and kind of the bread and butter what we do here at School Shield. Of course, as you can probably allude from the name and if you've seen anything that we've put out there or listened to our previous podcasts, we basically specialize in keeping children safe in the education environment. And one of the basis and one of the rock solid products that we offer is something called a vulnerability assessment. And some schools and some districts might know what that means, but unfortunately, in our experience, many do not. And my guest tonight is none other than our Chief Operations Officer, Mr. Tim Langan. Are you out there, buddy?
How you doing, Tim? How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. It's, of course, awesome to have you on. I appreciate you taking the time, and I'm excited to hear your expert opinion, ladies and gentlemen. If you guys are listening and you don't understand, Mr. Langan here, he's a very humble individual, and you'll hear it in his voice. But he is jam packed with experience when it comes to personal protection, executive protection. He was a honorably discharged, or is, I should say, is an honorably discharged Marine. You never was a Marine, you always are a Marine. And I used to take care of Marines, so I love my Marines. And so he has quite the experience. I'm not going to steal his thunder. But again, if you guys not see the Meet Mr. Tim Langan video on our earlier podcast, please check that out. But Tim, let's just jump right into it, man. We've talked about a couple of these things before, but I just want to get down to the basis. And like we've talked about in the past, a vulnerability assessment is our basis. It is our rock solid basis when it comes to school safety. So, what, for those people that don't understand, what is a vulnerability assessment?
Basically, a vulnerability assessment is something that's going to help schools and school districts consider potential vulnerabilities and risks. It will help them understand and leverage some of their existing resources, report on the findings identified in the assessments, and it will develop corrective actions and accountabilities. And then through those assessments, they'll use the findings to inform and update the school emergency management plans, so the safe school plans for each individual school site.
Okay, so just to break it down even more, you're telling me that a vulnerability assessment, kind of like what it sounds, but just for more layman's terms, it's kind of just taking the actual, you know, I'm not going to even say physical security, because that is absolutely one piece of it, but it's more just everything about the school, the physical security, the processes, the way they go through their day, the way they handle people coming into and out of their school, and looking for holes in that. Is that correct?
Correct. It's a vital part of school emergency management planning. It helps us determine which areas should be priorities of focus, provides opportunities for schools to work with community partners, the police departments, some of the local SWAT teams.
Okay.
It focuses on specific vulnerabilities and risks and how they might be mitigated through emergency management.
Okay, awesome. So you had mentioned, I guess it kind of alludes to why. Actually, let me just ask you this question, just so you can answer it directly. So it might seem obvious, but in your expert opinion, why do schools today in our day and age? Why do they need one?
We just kind of went over that. Essentially, it's to consider potential vulnerabilities and risks. It's to understand and leverage those existing resources. You want to understand what the school incident data is, the community data, the physical environment, unsecured entrances, exits, maybe hidden areas, um, down to the culture and the climate, the student engagement in the learning environment, the student and the staff relationships. Is there bullying and harassment? So you use the combined data to bring that in and create a very comprehensive safe school plan.
Awesome, awesome, and that's my next question. So basically, it's to point is this is that most schools, ladies and gentlemen, that we've assessed, okay, especially Mr. Langan here himself, and we're going to talk about this in a future podcast, but they just they are not ready. They have a lot of holes, and they have a lot of exposure to vulnerability. And we come in, and that's just us, and maybe perhaps there's other companies out there, but we have not seen it, which is why we put ourselves into the space to keep these schools safe. And basically, we are there to help fill those holes, okay, and make sure it happens. So, Tim, I appreciate you talking about that. But one of the one of the things I'm really excited that you mentioned, and I'm really excited to hear you say what your thoughts are on this, is regards to the safe school plan. We're based here in California, but in your opinion, how are schools safe school plans right now? And are they pretty good? Are they what are your thoughts on your evaluations of safe school plans to date?
Essentially, from what I've seen, is you have different schools, different school districts throughout the state, throughout the country that have their own way of doing things, their own setup. And what we'd like to do is bring everything in on a national level. Your fire departments and your police departments are going to respond a certain way. And what we'd like to do is make sure that everybody's using the incident command system. And that's a systematic tool used for command and control and coordination of emergency response. Or rather, for California, you can get into the SIMS, which is the Standardized Emergency Management System. And it's just the principles of incorporated plans and how personnel are trained in those systems using drills and exercises, practicing those systems, so that when the first responders do arrive, everybody understands what the role is and what their responsibilities are, and that's it in a nutshell.
I appreciate that. It's kind of hilarious that you're saying this, because I'm saying hilarious from the story I'm about to tell you. I don't think we've actually talked about this yet, my friend. But for you guys listening, this is going to be beneficial. What he just talked about, and especially with coordinating with local EMS and fire departments and police departments, is so crucial. Perfect example. I currently still see patients here in the San Diego, California area, and I was in clinic late on this past Friday night. I don't think I told you this, Tim. Um, and all of a sudden, about an hour before it closed, I'm seeing these patients, and one of them, a few of them come in because they're exposed to a certain chemical. Okay, and that's something that we are there to take care of. I take care of people that get hurt on the job and they're exposed to certain work areas. That's why occupational medicine is what I practice. And so the workers were exposed to some type of chemical out at their work job site. And long story short is one of the gentlemen started to go down a worse path and started to say the magic words of "I have chest pain," so we had to call the EMS. And we call the EMS, and they come to the clinic like they should, and they're getting ready to go. And then all of a sudden, one of the gentlemen in the fire department starts thinking about one of the chemicals I said, so he calls his hazmat team in there, and all of a sudden the clinic was on lockdown, and we couldn't go anywhere because there was a certain procedure and a process because of any kind of chemical was said, and it automatically in his mind triggered hazmat. So we we couldn't go forward anymore. So it's really important to think about that and to think about making sure you know what to expect when that comes into play. I don't think I told you that, but it's just funny that how I experienced that on a personal level very recently. And so, especially if these schools are not ready for it, they can definitely throw a kink in how they respond. So, Any other thoughts on that, Tim? I appreciate that, man. Talking about the ICS and the Sims.
No, I think that was a good point that you brought up, Tim. I mean, it's essential to understanding how to respond to um, different hazards, different things that happen in an operational platform. I mean, fundamentally, active and proactive countermeasures can work to reduce injury and protect lives. So we look at this as we must delay, deter, evolve, and adapt. Once we create the proper obstacles, we can begin reducing vulnerabilities and begin increasing opportunities to survive. And we're doing that through some of our local partnerships, such as 3M.
Nice, nice. And that was my next question, and I love that you led into that perfectly. So, ladies and gentlemen listening, like we're talking about in this podcast, and by the way, just I don't think I said this in the beginning, is that this is a two-part podcast because vulnerability assessments, my listeners, are absolutely key to school safety. Okay, so you can't just do this in one podcast. So we're making this a two-part. We're going to do one part this week, and we're going to do the next one next week with again Mr. Langan. But um, you know, once you start to have the vulnerability assessment done and conducted, you then have to put it into practice. And Tim just kind of alluded to it that we have certain relationships with people that can put some of these action steps in place. So Tim, you talked about 3M. And if you guys have been listening to our podcast for any length of time, you might have heard this in the past. But what is that relationship right now that we have with 3M?
Right now, we happen to be a dealer with 3M, and the reason why it's important to even bring it up is that 3M is just another company out there that has certain products that we believe will help create that deterrence and delay as far as any type of crime prevention. So they have a 3M film that goes over windows that not only creates a 71% energy efficiency rating, but it will take someone a minute and 46 seconds to actually break through the glass to be able to get inside the school building.
Yeah, and it's pretty impressive. And anybody listening, especially if you're a school administrator and you would like more information about this, please shoot us an email at info@schoolshield.com, info@schoolshield.com. But we have a video that is side by side of someone, trying to get through a regular glass that does not have the 3M film. And Tim, it takes them what, about 3 or 4 seconds, I think, to shoot through that glass.
Yeah, they can shoot through it, but they won't be able to what we call break and rake. They won't be able to break through the glass. It'll take them at least a minute and 46 seconds to be able to obtain access through that single window. What'll happen is they'll go to the next obstacle, and they might not be able to get into that obstacle. Then they go to the next obstacle. So we want to create a complete deterrent so that the police have time to arrive before these people can actually enter the building.
I love it, and you kind of ran with it. What I was saying, yeah, is that so? In this video, guys, what Tim just went through is that you have these pieces of glass side by side. One has the film, one does not. I was talking about the one that does not have it. This guy shoots through it in about 3 or 4 seconds, and then as Mr. Langan just awesomely, perfectly described, is that this other person takes quite a bit longer, at least a minute and 46 seconds. It is an obstacle. What it's allowing is the children in this very, very unfortunate incident to be getting away, getting to safety, buying them time. And we're pretty proud of this relationship because, Tim, how long does it usually take vendors, in order to establish a relationship with a massive company like 3M?
It's about a 15-year process and 5 years to become an installer. But we've got a great relationship with them. They understand what it is that we're doing, what we're trying to do, and we recognize and they recognize that school safety is a perpetually intricate subject, that there's no solitary solution. But there are things that we can do, settings and infrastructure, to change, and we're substituting that with some of these great methods.
Love it. I love it. Well, Tim, you are an absolute professional, and I love interviewing you because you are a wealth of knowledge, buddy. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys got some benefit from this. Tim, before you jump off this first part, again, you guys listening, this is part one of two. Okay, so we're going to be doing the second part in regards to vulnerability assessments, what they are, why you need one, and how you can implement one. Okay, and this week and next week. So, Tim, any final thoughts on this part one before we jump off here?
I think essentially what we'd like to do from the assessment process is come to your schools and create a team, understand the culture, and we want to brainstorm these hazards and risks. And we want to research and ID the school's vulnerabilities from a broad paintbrush. But we want to hand the schools something that's readable, something that they can consume and understand, as opposed to, a 72-page booklet that they won't know how to handle. So we're just determining the risk and priorities, and we're going to report them in a very concise process. That's it.
Appreciate it, buddy. Again, thank you to every single person listening. Tim, thank you so much for being on, buddy. As always, very much appreciated.
Thank you, Tim.
And again, anybody listening out there, if you guys have not checked out our website, please do so, which is schoolshield.com, schoolshield.com. Also, if you would like to get our free report, which is 21 ways to keep your child safe. And this is not just mean in the school environment, even though it's touched on, it talks about from being at home, having conversations with your child. It is 100% free. It is 100% content. It is actually 21 ways to keep your child safe, period. End of discussion. And we are very proud of that. So please go ahead and enter your email over at schoolshieldsolutions.com, schoolshieldsolutions.com. This is part one of our vulnerability assessment discussion. Hope you guys had a good time listening to us and got some value from this. We will see you next week. Have a good one. Take care.